Shields up, Ironbreakers. Welcome back to Granblue Fantasy Relink. As you may or may not be aware, I am super hyped for this game. I've been eagerly anticipating its release since 2017, so naturally I'm constantly checking it for new information and seeing what else we can learn from footage that has previously already been posted. And today we're actually going to be looking at the first Granblue Fantasy Relink Showcase livestream, because in a couple of days we're going to be having the second Granblue Fantasy Relink Showcase livestream, which is going to be published on the official channel, and I might even, co-stream that particular livestream depending on whether or not there's going to be some form of English localization in that livestream, because naturally I don't speak Japanese, so I'm not going to be able to tell you guys much by just watching the footage without having any context whatsoever in English. So we shall see how that pans out. That's going to be on the 11th on the official Cygames channel, and I have something else planned. I have a podcast planned with two people that you guys already know that have already gotten to play the game. So hopefully, if everything pans out, you can look forward to seeing that either tomorrow or the day after here in the channel. So hopefully you guys are looking forward to that. Now, today I wanted to point out a couple of interesting things. So last week, I believe, this was 4 days ago. Last week, Cygames, the people developing Granblue Fantasy Relink, have actually posted the Granblue Fantasy, the animation. So this is, this is an animation that I believe is supposed to have like 13 episodes, give or take, and they've posted the first 7 episodes on their official YouTube channel, which I'm going to be linking in the description of this video in case you guys want to check it out. In case you guys don't know anything about, Granblue Fantasy lore, which just so happens to be my personal case, I kind of feel like this is a good entry point. So I watched the first episode already. I haven't really watched any of the other ones. It was all right. It was nothing that I would be like, oh my god, it's super, mega, giga amazing, but it gives you a little bit of an introduction on some of the characters, which is interesting, so that I have a little bit more background information for when I actually jump into the game. And I would actually recommend, if you guys are interested in Granblue Fantasy Relink, maybe this one is worth the check out. And even so, if there are people in the comment sections that have already watched Granblue Fantasy the animation, because I know that Granblue Fantasy has like a massive community because it's a super popular game, let us know in the comment section whether or not this is worth our time. Either way, I'm still going to watch it because I am interested in checking out all of this stuff in preparation for the actual game itself. Now, another thing that I wanted to check out real quick is there's a trailer that was posted like a couple of weeks ago. I still haven't really watched it, so we're going to be checking that out. And then we're going to be doing an analysis on some gameplay that we have from the first showcase. This was gameplay that I actually showcased on my last video, but I didn't really focus on the gameplay itself. And today we're actually going to be breaking down some gameplay such as Link Attack, Skybound Arts, and all of that stuff, and how that is going to work on the game itself for those of you that are curious about gameplay mechanics and stuff like that. So let's get things started by taking a look at this boss battle trailer. All right, so a couple of things. We're going to be toning down the volume now so that I can actually speak over it while we are going through this show, so that I can tell you a couple of interesting points that I notice in here. So first and foremost, a lot of people, when you're in my channel, most likely you know me from either Dark Souls or Monster Hunter. And I have stated in the past that this game has a structure somewhat similar to Monster Hunter. What I mean by that is that this is the type of game that has a mission structure. So you go on missions, you have a hub, you post quests, people can join you, kind of like the same way that you post quests in Monster Hunter and people join you on quests. That's pretty much where the similarities end, though. Because when you're doing these particular fights, I know that a lot of people are going to be like, oh my god, it's almost like fighting a monster in Monster Hunter. No. This is going to be more like raid boss encounters, in my opinion, than necessarily something as organic as a Monster Hunter fight. And the vibe of this is going to be very different from a Monster Hunter fight, which is one of the things that I want to make sure that I make perfectly clear. I'm not saying that everybody thinks that that is the case. I'm just, I know that not everybody, but a lot of people like to bring in parallels from other games and stuff like that. Do not look at these boss fights like Monster Hunter encounters, even though there are mechanics like the breaking of parts and stuff like that. You have to look at these more like raid encounters, and I think you will be much better served than expecting something like a Monster Hunter. Like if you see here, you see all these tornadoes and stuff. These are all like mechanics that were used to in MMORPGs, so to speak. And the thing is, even though there's going to be a lot of parallels to be drawn when it comes to MMORPG raid boss fights and stuff like that, this is much more action-driven because it is specifically designed around 4-player multiplayer as opposed to like, super big in server structure and stuff like that. So, yeah. And we can see a lot of like really cool-looking bosses and some mechanics. You see the characters darting around, dodging, doing all of that stuff. You can do dodges, you can do parries, you can block. And different characters will have different mechanics around that, which is pretty cool. Bosses will also have things like enrage timers. And this was actually a very interesting boss that the first time that I saw it, I saw like a picture or something like this on social media. And initially I was thinking like, oh, is this going to be one of those cases where we're going to be hitting like the tippy toes of the boss and that's going to be the thing? But if you notice like the way that it's shooting out all these rockets, and then if you notice in this image, we're actually climbing a giant, which I'm not sure if it's the same giant. It could be. I'm not 100% sure. But as you can see in here, we're actually climbing up him and we're going into, to a place where we can actually deal damage to it. So this is something that excites me. I like the concept of jumping into a massive boss and actually going after him as opposed to just hitting him on his tippy toes. Like that's never super interesting when you have a massive boss and all you do is just hit it in the legs or whatever, because that's the only part that you can actually reach. So I like that they're taking this concept of like, almost like Shadow of the Colossus, how you climb up this really big creature in order to find its weak spots and whatnot. And there's opportunities here for like multiplayer cooperation wherein like, oh, you take care of left arm, I take care of right arm, we'll deal damage here and there, and then eventually we'll open up the head or whatever. I like that idea. And here's another thing that I'm super excited for, which is the potential for fights that take place in the airship. I love this. I love it when, you have like a hub or something or a location that you actually consider to be a safe location for you and your party. And, the enemies actually take the battle to you at this location that you consider to be safe. I love that. Wild Hearts actually did something similar to that. I don't know how many of you guys played Wild Hearts. I know Wild Hearts is a game that has a lot of problems. A lot of people didn't like it. But Wild Heart does have a scenario where there's a monster that actually straight up attacks the village, your home village, and that becomes like an arena where you fight the monster. And I personally thought that was really cool. Even though it was not the best possible implementation, just like the concept of somebody actually taking the fight to you in a place that you consider a safe haven, I like that a lot. So I like this idea of us fighting on the airships. These boss fights look really cool. That's Lilith, by the way. I've been looking up the information on some of the characters. She's like a part of this strange church. They talked about that on the other video that we're going to be checking out right after this, which is the showcase. So this showcase does have subtitles in English that you guys can turn on if you want to watch the official. I'm gonna link to the videos that we're watching here in the comment and in the description of this video, so that you guys can go check those out without my commentary on top of it. But here we have. Oh, the volume just a smidge. So they're going to be discussing the actual progression of the game. I'm gonna lower this even a little bit more because it can, you know, I know that I pause a lot and I don't want it to be too aggravating on your eardrums. So as you progress through the main story, you're going to be unlocking a variety of content. This is pretty standard. You're going to unlock multiplayer quests, and at special times you're going to unlock more playable characters. Now, one of the first concerns, and I believe I've been mentioning this throughout a lot of my videos, because this was like my biggest concern for Granblue Fantasy Relink in a post-Genshin Impact world. Because like, guys need to understand, when I first started following Granblue Fantasy Relink, Genshin Impact didn't even exist, right? So we didn't even know what Genshin Impact was all about. But in a post-Genshin Impact world, I was actually much less excited for Granblue Fantasy Relink because it hadn't been made clear to me whether or not this game was going to feature gacha mechanics for its characters or anything like that. Because, for those of you that aren't aware, the original Granblue Fantasy game, which is a mobile game, it's also available on browsers and stuff like that. That game is a gacha game. So I was like, oh, they're just taking their gacha game to you know, a 3D world and trying to pick up some console players and PC players. That is not the case. This is not a gacha game, and the way in which you get characters and you unlock characters is going to be deterministic. You're going to be able to accrue these tickets by doing quests and completing the main story campaign and all of this stuff. And as you acquire a certain amount of these tickets, you'll be able to just straight up buy the characters. As far as I know, there is no way to, like, at least that is planned currently, for you to just like straight up buy a character for real money. So everything should be properly balanced for people to unlock characters as they progress through the game at a reasonable pace. At least that is my expectation. One of the things that as I've talked over the years with other people about Cygames and what to expect from Granblue Fantasy Relink, I've been told, like, hey, look, the vibe that we get from this is just like, look, this is a company that has made their money on mobile, using gacha and stuff, and they're trying to tap into a new market by entering the console space with this game. Another game, by the way, that this company is working on is a game that I've reported on in the past a long time ago, is Project Awakening, which is also a very interesting game. You guys might want to check out some of the videos that I have on that, but let's continue. So the town is going to town. They say town's plural. This is the only town that I've seen so far. I like the idea that there will potentially be more towns, but towns are going to act like your hubs, very much like villages in Monster Hunter, so to speak. So you'll be able to have like several players in a town. If you're in a multiplayer session, you'll be able to pick up quests and organize stuff and upgrade your gear and all of that. They talk a little bit more about upgrading gear and collecting sigils and whatnot, so we'll talk about that when the time comes. Looks like you'll also be able to interact with certain characters, because, like, for instance, this right here is a playable character. That's Catalina. The reason they're pointing out that battles happen seamlessly is because they don't want people to think that this is like, you know, a traditional JRPG where you hit a monster and then, you know, battle starts. So combat is parties of 4, like I've already mentioned, and just in case this is the first video that you guys are watching from me on Granblue Fantasy. It can either be up to 4 players, or it can be 2 players and 2 NPCs, 1 player, 3 NPCs. It can be whatever combination you want. You can even just go in and do it solo. It's probably going to be way more challenging because the game is going to be balanced around you actually using 4 characters. But you can play the game entirely solo with 3 characters helping you. But like I said, if you want to go in for a real challenge and all of that stuff, and you don't even want to have characters helping you, you can't, it seems like you can do that, but again, it's going to be very, very challenging because particularly there seems to be mechanics that are specific around you collaborating with other characters, like link arts that we're going to get into as well. Not link arts, link attacks, I believe they're called, as well as Skybound Arts. And, those, in order to take full advantage of those, you're going to be required to have a party. So in addition to the combos of normal attacks, you're also going to fight with 4 skills. These 4 skills you're going to be able to equip. I believe that this is like the default screen. If we go a little bit back here, you'll notice that he actually selects the skills thing. I'm going to pause when that pops up, like you saw it right there. If you notice the bottom left-hand side, R1, these are the current, at least this is my assumption from what I've seen of the game so far. You press R1 and you get the skills that your character currently has equipped. Whenever you press R1, you also gain access to this menu, which brings up consumables usage. I don't know what all of these consumables do, but I assume that at least some of them are going to be healing items and whatnot. But yeah, you basically choose whatever art you're going to be using. There also appears to be different ranks to these arts depending on how you've been doing in combat, because you can see it says here class 1 when he's casting his first skill, but you get to choose 4 skills. I don't know exactly how many skills each character is going to have, but they're going to have more than 4 because you can kind of like choose the ones that you want and work your build around that. There's going to be a sigil system for you to actually min-max your build, which they'll be showing later on. And there's also a skill tree type system that is going to allow you to further customize your character. I don't know if you'll be able to build out your character to the point where you can just have the entirety of the skill tree system at this point, but, we shall see when the actual game releases. The skills appear to be governed by cooldown. Now, they're going to be talking about a different mechanic, which is called link attacks, and they say here, by repeatedly attacking your foe, you'll fill their stun gauge, eventually causing them to flinch. And you can see that up here. So below the enemy's health bar, there's like this blue gauge that governs their, break gauge, whatever you want to call this, their stagger gauge. And eventually, when you do break their gauge, it's going to enable something called a link attack. So notice how now it pops up this. I'm assuming that this is the link attack. I'm not 100% sure what says in here because I don't speak Japanese, but you'll notice that this showed up immediately after he filled the stun gauge. Now the stun gauge after filled appears to turn purple, which dictates the amount of time that the enemy is going to be vulnerable. As you can see, he's not really doing much while doing this, and you get a link attack. Now, what they say here is that after each character does their own link attack, or I'm assuming after a certain amount of link attacks, because I think that they will have to do several link attacks in order to really take advantage of the system. This link gauge over here is going to fill up, and once it gets to 100%, you can do like a type of finisher almost, and you can go into link time. So see, it's at 100% here, and it looks like Catalina is going to do something that's going to trigger it. Like right there. Boom, they triggered it, whatever it is that they have to do. They say that once it reaches 100%, once all crewmates have performed a link attack, it triggers temporary boost. So maybe you have to fill it up by doing link attacks, and then after that, everybody needs to do one more link attack, and that triggers link time, and this gives you a boost. And if you notice here, you will see that there's like a couple of icons here. Naturally, I can't say what all of these are, but from my experience with, other Japanese games, I would say that this is probably attack up. This is definitely HP up or HP recover or something of that nature. This might be like maybe magical attack up or something like that. And this could potentially be reduced cooldown. I'm not 100% sure, but you're definitely going to have a big boost of stats. So this is kind of like your burst window. You're going to go into link time, and then after link time, you're going to go into burst window. And as you can see, everybody's just going completely ballistic at this point. And then we have Skybound Arts. Skybound Arts are kind of like your ultimates. The way they work is if you see here, we actually have our HP gauge, and below it, there's like this percentage indicator. And this is your Skybound Art. So while you are doing combat, the better you do in combat, the more the Skybound Art fills up. Once the Skybound Art fills up, you get to unload it doing like a special like the one they're showing now.
キャラクターの HP の下の奥義ゲージを貯めることで強力な奥義を発動することができます。
And the thing about Skybound Arts is if everybody times their Skybound Arts correctly to do at the same time, as I've mentioned previously, you get to do a chain burst. And something that I've now noticed from watching more gameplay, it seems that the chain burst changes depending on who finishes the burst. So the person that finishes the burst is going to dictate what the burst is going to be, adding an additional layer of strategy if my speculation is correct, because I'm not 100% sure on this. It just appears to be that way from the gameplay that I've seen so far.
大ダメージを与えつつヒット中は敵が行動できなくなるため非常に強力なのですが、仲間の奥義に続いてさらに奥義を重ねて発動していくことでさらなる追加ダメージを与えるチェインバーストを発動させることができます。
There you go.
とてつもない爽快感が得られるグラブルならではの要素でもありますし、キャラクターの組み合わせによって掛け
Now in here they mentioned that these have unique voice lines and there's callouts based to whoever is in your party. Number one, I'm not exactly sure what the localization situation is with this game, if it's going to have English voices or not, but I do like the fact that potentially characters will recognize the people that are in their party and maybe do callouts like, "Hey, John, look at this!" Boom! Like, that's kind of cool to have that relationship with characters. But like I've mentioned previously, I do hope there's a slider that enables us to like decide how much people want to hear, because I know that in the West, that is a big problem for a lot of people.
声なども変化しますので、ぜひいろいろな組み合わせで試してみていただけたらと思います。冒頭にもありましたが、キャラクターの数だけ異なるアクション体験が楽しめる。
Now, one of the best features that they're pointing out is the sheer unique number of playstyles that you're going to have access to, and this is reflected in the number of characters that you have available to you. Which, by the way, if we take a quick look here, for those of you that are curious. Wait, do I not have... Yeah, here we go. These are all the characters that have currently been announced. So we have your main character. These are companions, so you don't really play these. And then you have all of these allies. You will be able to play each of these characters, I think, because I haven't really seen gameplay of this guy, Roland, so far. And then you have Lancelot, Yvain, Percival, Siegfried, Charlotta, and each of these is going to provide you with a different playstyle. So overall, each character is individually not going to be as complex as, say, like a Monster Hunter weapon or anything like that, but they're going to provide you with a different enough playstyle that there will be reasons to bring different characters and their combinations and their finishers, and even just having like a balance, because, for instance, I know that Yvain and I believe Lancelot are more characters that work kind of like defensive characters. So they, in the case of Yvain, he can even put like a dome-like shield to protect other characters. And one of the strategies that we talked about in one of our previous videos that was brought up by 269 from Eric's Gaming is that in his session what people were doing was they were using Yvain to put up the shield, and then that would allow, what's her name, Io, to cast like really powerful spells, because she would just sit in the shield and be protected from everything, and she would just like be charging her really big beefy spells. So I already know that, like, for instance, these two characters will probably end up making a good combination, because he can protect her while she is casting devastating spells. What other combinations could we potentially be seeing? That is something that excites me a lot, because it's going to be not just about the character that you're playing, but with which characters does your character synergize, and how are you going to balance that versus the characters that you actually want to play with.
本作最大の特徴となっています。ちょっとした映像だけでもそれを感じていただけるのではと思いますので、簡単な紹介とともにご覧ください。
So now they're going to showcase gameplay from a lot of the characters. So this is Gran. This is your main character. I believe that a large portion of the main campaign, you're probably going to be playing this character. But once you get to the multiplayer section, which again, optional multiplayer, mission, quests, all of that stuff, which can completely be done solo, once you get to that portion of the game, you should be able to just choose whatever character you want and unlock new characters, so on and so forth. But I believe, again, don't quote me on this, that probably a decent chunk of the main story will be played by this character. Now, as you can see, he has one-handed swords. They even describe him as, I don't know why they call him the captain. I think he's just called Gran. A reliable leader who excels at close range with one-handed swords, can learn a variety of skills to fill any gaps in your party setup. We've also seen him use bow-type skills earlier in the gameplay, so there's that as well. I love the animations. They're so good. You have Catalina here. She is like a skilled swordsman, boasts of healing and healing and protective skills. So she works kind of like a tank as well. She can call the primal beast Ares to temporarily enhance her attacks. Now, this is actually one of the characters that has jumped into my interest, because I was thinking about having a character with a gun, either him or the other one who's called Egium. I forget. I don't know their names. But Rurikhan says he attacks from distance with a rifle and pistol, but if the enemy gets too close, he can change position to a blink of an eye. I think that this might actually be a mistranslation. I think the idea is if they get too close, he can blast them in short range as well, which you'll see here, which looks pretty good. Then you have Io, which, as you can see, she's all about casting spells. These spell effects look really good. So she paralyzed her enemies, and now she's casting like a more powerful spell. And blast. This is Eugen, the other dude that I was thinking about, because he's got like a cannon, but it looks like he's more about precision firing from a distance, where I want something more medium range, so I might do Rurikhan instead. We'll see. But this is also another character that I've got my eye on. I love how he just launches a grenade at him. Then you have Rosetta, who uses thorns. She also does support type stuff. You have Fairy, which appears to be like some kind of water mage. And she has a whip. Lancelot, your dual blades user that, you know, is all about evasion, agile knight, overwhelm your foes with a flurry of attacks from dual blades. He is super fast. He appears to be ice element. I don't know if there's like elemental advantages or anything like that. This is another character that I have my eye on. I'm not a huge fan of like pole arms or anything like that, but he appears to be like big, beefy, tanky boy. So this could also be an interesting character that suits me. And I like him. I like this move. Look at him. Slash, 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 slash. I love the exaggeration on it. This is probably going to be my main right here. Percival, because as you guys know, I'm into fire, phoenixes, the whole 9 yards, and Percival is looking very interesting for that. Siegfried, for all my great sword mains out there, this is the big meaty boy with the big meaty attacks. It seems that he's all about the timing, so my prediction would be something like, I don't know how many of you guys played a lot of Japanese action games, but usually when it comes to timing, they're like, first you swing, and then you press the swing button again when the attack is about to land. I think that might be what they're referring to with perfect timing for this character, but we shall see. Then we have Charlotta. I'm a little bit curious about this character. The thing is, I don't like the little crown she's got on her head. I think it looks dumb. That's the only criticism that I have of this character. I don't like her little crown. I think it looks dumb. Everything else, I think this character actually looks really interesting, and I could even see her being my main, but I really don't like that little crown she's got on her head. It triggers the crap out of me. I don't know why. But she's apparently like an aerial type of character, but she's looking pretty good. Look at that. And then this is for all my longsword mains out there with your counters and all of that stuff. She's got a katana and she's all about the counters, okay? She has 2 stances, one for speed and one for range. She uses not only the katana, but apparently it also transforms into some kind of a glaive. And then you have a character that to me is just straight up inspired by Yoda from Star Wars. His name is actually Yodara, but he just reminds me a lot of Yoda if he had two lightsabers. Look at him go. And then Zeta appears to be a Dragoon type character almost. Look at her go. And there's this big dude with a massive scythe. He's all about tanking hits. So like you'll just sit there charging, take the hits, and then boom, delete everything. And this dude was actually announced at this particular event, Gandagoza, who is like a fist dude. He appears to be all about hand-to-hand combat and charging big, devastating blows. So he looks pretty badass too. Now in here they talk about when you level up your crew members, you're going to be able to unlock their individual masteries, which, you know, this just indicates there's a level up system really. The one thing that I'm still curious about is whether or not the characters level individually, or if they level when they're on your party, or if they need to be on your party to level, or if all the characters that you have level up at the same time. And I still don't know what the answer is because all the characters have the same level here, so I don't know what the deal is with that. Now in here, as you can see, you have the upgrade system. What do they call it again? They have like a name for it. I should have just like rewinded. Okay. Individual masteries. So it's the masteries. And as you can see here, you'll be able to cycle through different things. Now, my question is, are we going to be able to fill out the whole tree by the time we level up the character all the way? Or are we going to be forced to make choices? Personally, me, I would love it if we were forced to make choices. I don't like when games do like, oh, we're doing this skill tree, but by the time you're done with the game, your skill tree is fully full. Because like, well, there's really no choices there. There's the choices of the things that you use to level up, but at the end of the day, you just get everything, right? So I'm hoping that is not going to be the case for Granblue Fantasy Relink, but at this point in time, I just don't know. And considering how simple the tree looks, I wouldn't be surprised if by the time that you're done leveling up a character, you just have enough mastery points to fill out the whole thing. Unlocking mastery nodes increases specific stats and opens up new skills and combat actions. It is also possible to some degree to focus on certain upgrade routes to prioritize specific stat growth. Yeah, the vibe that I get is that by the time you're done, you're going to have this whole thing filled up. You're able to develop characters however you like. Looks like you have a setting for more defensive stats and one for more offensive stats. So, you know. There's a lot of upgrades to be had is the point. So these are the skills that we were talking about that you can only equip 4 of. Oh, looks like in the party screen here, everybody has the same level. It almost leads me to believe that everybody just levels at the same time, which I'm fine with that. If you only need to level up once and then the other characters just follow along as you level, that's fine. But my suspicion is that they might have just have this as a save file for demonstration. And I think that the only characters that will level are the ones that are with you in a party. Maybe. Not sure. Because then how would it work for when you're playing with other players? It's a little bit weird. I'm not 100% sure. Maybe it's an account-wide level. Who knows? So as you can see here, there's the thing right there, R1 plus square, R1 plus triangle, R1 plus circle, R1 plus cross. And you can see that there's a couple of more things that you can select here that are not equipped, like that skill at the bottom is not equipped. Wait, it says customize your party, so that means that I can customize the actions of all of the other ones. Nice. I like that. I like the idea of fully customizing the actual skills that everybody that I have on my party brings to the game. That's cool.
武器と寺院と呼ばれる様々なスキル効果を
Yeah, the customization doesn't end here. You can also tweak them by using weapons and accessories called sigils. So it looks like each character, at least at level 40, I don't know what is the level cap, but at level 40, they're going to have 5 sigils that they can equip. So sigils are going to be things that will give you passive benefits like, oh, increases your HP, increases, your increases your damage passively, something like that. But they can also change the way in which certain skills work, is my understanding. So you might get a sigil that specifically improves a certain skill of a certain character, and that is probably going to be very desirable, I would imagine.
アイテムをキャラクターに装備させることで膨大なスキルカスタマイズが可能です。
I wish I could like read all of these, but it seems like this would increase your damage, this would increase your HP. This probably increases magic damage, I would imagine. Maybe this increases like summon damage, bonus to strength, more bonus to damage, except this one's level 6, so it'd be more powerful than the level 5 one. Bonus to blocking, because there is a blocking mechanic. Bonus to consumables, maybe. This one I have no idea. But yeah, you get the idea, right? Some will simply boost your attack or HP, while others provide more specialized effects, like boosting your stats after a perfect dodge or increasing your attack power based on missing health. So you have heroics. There you go. There's a lot to experiment with. And so the idea is, according to what 269 said, is like you'll do one of those big bosses, and depending on how well you do on the boss, how many parts you break, all of that, it determines how many chests there will be there at the end waiting for you. And as you open those chests, you're going to be getting these sigils for your character to play around with. Every character is yours to mold as you see fit. Weapons can be upgraded at the blacksmith with the right materials, so this aspect of it is somewhat similar to Monster Hunter. You're going to be getting different weapons, you're going to be crafting and upgrading them as you progress in the game. Each weapon has unique stats and traits, which means that potentially for certain skills, maybe some weapons are better than others, which is cool. So this NPC has sigil trading services, so you probably can get like some raw materials or something. So she's probably going to work kind of like the Elder Melder, I would imagine. You'll be able to meld certain sigils. She also shows up on the field. And then there's the types of quests that you have available to you. Okay, so one thing that I already don't like. Easy and normal? So there's going to be multiple difficulty levels to each quest. Okay. Usually the reason I don't like this is because when a developer is forced to balance the game around multiple difficulties, what ends up happening is that balance is kind of like rough. I prefer it when there's one difficulty and you just keep progressing upwards, and the later you go into the game, the harder things get. I think that makes more sense. But, looks like it's going to have an easy mode and a normal mode. And probably a hard mode as well. Quests are managed by an organization called the Crew Alliance Rafale. You'll be undertaking a quest from them. And you can even see the rewards that you get from each of these quests. So this is going to be a certain sigil. This is going to be another sigil. This is going to be like a special material or something. So you already know what you're farming for when you are going through these. Maybe this is actually the equivalent of like low rank and high rank? Maybe? Because the way that it is presented, it kind of feels the same way. So who knows? We'll see. So there's quests like defeating big bosses, taking out hordes of monsters, and defending certain targets. Over 100 quests available, there's no shortage of adventure to be had. I love the animations on it, though. They got really good animations.
駆け足となりましたが、僕
And that's like all they show. After that, they show a little bit of gameplay of the party going off against a boss, where they come in here and they're fighting off against this big boss, which shows us some gameplay. But I kind of feel like I want to get my hands on the game before I actually can judge this gameplay properly, because there's just too many jumping around between the different characters and whatnot. But yeah, there's a lot of stuff here. Another thing that I would like to point out, for those of you that haven't been following the game recently, a couple of more quests a couple more characters that were added was this one, Cagliostro. She's going to be launching with the game, and 2 more characters are going to be added in April 2024, which is Seophon and Twayen. So if you guys are familiar with the Granblue Fantasy characters, you'll be aware of the ones that are coming in April. Me personally, I don't know anything about these characters. Like I already said, I'm interested in some of them, like this dude, maybe her, either him or him, and the main character, I guess. I don't know. I'm going to have to look at them, see how they play and all of that stuff. It's kind of like, you know, in Monster Hunter, you go into the training room and you test out all different weapons to figure out which one you like the most. That's going to be the case for me. I'm going to be trying out multiple characters before I figure out which one I want to stick with, but right now I'm just excited to get my hands on the game. Just a reminder, if you pre-order on PlayStation, you're going to get early access. And unfortunately, from everything that I can see so far, it does not seem that the early access is going to be available on the Steam version. It specifically says here, Relink Pack and early access are not included in the standard edition purchased from Steam. They just say the standard edition, they're also not included in the special edition purchase from Steam. So you can't really get early access on Steam, which I really wish they wouldn't do that, but at the end of the day, it's whatever. It's not a big deal. I'm either going to be playing on PlayStation 5 or on Steam, depending on whether or not I'm able to get early access with the PC version. But yeah, those are my thoughts on what we know so far about Granblue Fantasy Relink. Are you as excited as I am? Are you cautiously optimistic? Is this game just not for you? Let me know in the comment section down below. Thank you very much for watching. If you enjoyed the video, hit the like button, subscribe, bell notification icon, all that jazz, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Stay strong, stay safe. Peace out.